Hey, so much going on, family. So many things in the world is going on. We always considered last. Got to consider ourselves first. B1, baby. You got to get on your money. And you have to at least understand politics. Good evening, Wendell. Good afternoon, family. I was busy on Friday and Saturday, so good to see you guys. But tonight, we're going to cover a lot of things. I want you to get your drink. Okay, your YouTube iced tea. You know how your boy do. Get your YouTube iced tea. Go and get you something that you can parlay with. Oh, yeah. I want you guys to get nice and comfortable in here tonight. We're going to cover a couple of things, family. What's up, LaMarcus? What's up? Oh, yeah. It's like rappers is going to booth. I'm on the grind, I'm all the time. I got pumped, you know I'm iron. They just be saying some stuff, right? I don't know. Then he's like, oh, he about to go in. Nah. I'm on one tonight. You know, when you on one, I got a lot to cover. Good evening, Prime X. I got a lot to cover, and I'm just so excited about it. I'm just so excited about it. You just get motivated, you know? It's that beat too, right? It's that beat. I don't know if it's echoing back, but it's that beat. Top of the morning, I'm about to serve. I drink my green juice. I'm about to make that money, spend that money, invest that money, and save that money. When I spend it on the investment, you know I'm reinvested. Like, you can do this, right? You can do this, right? I'm on one. You can just put some words together and make them make sense. I don't know. I might stumble, I might fall, but I'm going to continue. Yeah, I'm on one. All right, listen. All right, fun time is over. Let's get right into the video. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, what I want to do for you, I want to break down how this presidency, a lot of times people believe that the constituents, the Senate, as well as Congress, has a lot of power and prevents presidents from moving towards people, in a sense, groups of people. Now, we have to not only stay in history to understand and realize what's going on in the present, but we must reflect on those things, dissect those things, break them down so we understand what's actually going on in today's world. When we talk about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, this form of white supremacy operates in all activities, okay, in all activities of us Black people around the world. This is a global system of white supremacy. And I would just like to say, if this was a system, it was a president and vice president, well, there you have it, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But we have some accountability, because it's not like the information of these two are secrets. Everything we know about them, very, very public. We could have made judgments a long time ago. The problem is we continue to vote Democrat over and over again, expecting a different result. That is literally, that's insanity. But we continue to do this. They continue to use other groups to give our resources to over and over again, and we can't see it. First and foremost, what they do is they use our history, they use Jim Crow, they use slavery, they use Reconstruction and the fail of Reconstruction, they use the Civil Rights Act, they use affirmative action, and award those benefits, award those securities, award those justices to other people other than Black. Now, we even consider yourself a Native American and you look like myself, then you understand a little bit what I'm referring to, but not totally. Because we're going to dissect this video of Presidential Secretary Yellen as well with Vice President Harris, and how this Freedmen's Bank Forum was essentially going to be for Black people. And I'm just going to let the cat out the bag, so you don't even have to watch the whole entire video. And how they're going to squander that money away to people of color and Native Americans in those tribal communities, where we need to understand, and this is not a slight or a plight against, this is just the facts. There's nothing against Native Americans, no racial innuendos there. Native Americans get $20 billion a year. So when you hear your elected officials, the ones that you voted into office, tell you they're going to continue to give Native Americans money, also include them in a possible study or and reparations plan for Black Americans. So Native Americans on whole get $20 billion a year. And we're going to get into this a little deeper than this so I can show you the documented proof. But this year, Native Americans got $31 billion, the most in history. And so anytime someone is speaking about another group, when you're considering reparations for foundational Black Americans as well as American Descendant of Slaves, then you know that the elected officials that you have appointed, right, by your vote has failed you miserably. But then there's a point of accountability and responsibility that before you go out and vote, just like before you go out and buy a vehicle, you do your research. And that's the problem. A lot of us are lazy. A lot of us don't like to read. A lot of us don't like to study. And it really doesn't take that much time where the power of everything of a computer is in your freaking hand. So you can just look up the very things. Then you have people who come on here and do commentary. I mean, wonderful orators like Professor Black Truth, Tariq Nasheed, Jason Black, Phil Scott, TD Hip Hop Media, all these other platforms. But nonetheless, I'm going to break this down to you because I think it's very important that we are aware that when this comes around again, family, in the next 4 years, okay, 4 years from now, I want you guys to remember this. And then whether you choose to vote or not, you'll have the information to go forth. So first and foremost, I have to share my screen. Give me a second here. 1 second. There we go. Vice President Treasurer announced billions for Black. Then it says minority business at Freedmen's Bank Forum. Now we understand what a minority business is. Okay, why say Black than minority? Now this is the Freedmen's Forum, the first Black bank that was in Greenwood, Oklahoma. The district, Greenwood is a community, Tulsa, Oklahoma. But Greenwood is a community within Tulsa. So it states here, Vice President Kamala Harris and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen headlined the annual Freedmen's Bank Forum on Tuesday, announcing $8.7 billion in funding for financial institutions serving minorities and underserved small businesses. Now, family, we already know what a minority is. Everyone who's non-white, that's what a minority is. Everybody who's non-white, with the exception of white women. So again, you use a Black massacre of Black Americans who built a financial empire that got decimated by the system of white supremacy through federal laws and corruption within that bank. What a lot of people don't understand is that the Freedmen's Bank, at the end of it all, let me just read it for you. I think it's better if I read it for you, right? Because when we dissect this video, I think it's important that you guys understand this. People of color, minorities, Asians, Hispanics, white women, Native Americans. So if it's $8.7 billion, again, ladies and gentlemen, this is not reparations. This is not even resources. This is not even funding for us. But like always, I believe that you should hear from the horse's mouth. Okay. Very, very important that we listen to this. I got some timestamps I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to make sure that we get these timestamps in here so we can break this down. You guys have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section. Here we go.
Greenwood District was a very special place, and I think we all know was a very intentional place.
Fair use, fair use.
It was not the product of whim or fancy or circumstance. It was a design, and intentional in that way. And it was designed and intended to be a community, a thriving community within a community. An economy in which Black people supported one another, lifted one another up, and modeled excellence, in which Black people could determine their own future. Some of us refer to that as self-determination. To put equity firmly at the center.
Equity meaning money.
Policy.
Family, up until this point, we're talking about Freeman's Bank, Kamala Harris, President Secretary Janet Yellen, having this forum of how they're going to provide $8.7 billion to Black people initially. Everything starts off as Black, right? We covered a lot of things on this channel in this past year, and I'll make sure we always get into the details of the story, of the message, because a lot of times we just read a headline, Blacks getting reparations, and then we stop, drop, and run like, we getting reparations, but we don't read the entire story. Now, you ever heard a term, you can't talk the way you write, and you can't write the way you talk? Well, it's fortunate enough, ladies and gentlemen, that the Democrats and any other politician, they say what they write, and they write what they say. Let me continue, because this is important to cover, because I know a lot of times we don't like to dissect things, but we must dissect them. We must dissect them. Here we go.
As one example, Black entrepreneurs are 3 times more likely to report
Black again.
that lack of access to capital negatively affects their profit margins. I believe that the actions we are taking and must take to address these disparities will define our nation's strength and economic strength in the 21st century. Our economy is growing faster than it has in decades. Unemployment is down to 4.2%, and nearly 6 million jobs have been added since January.
For who?
As a nation, we cannot take this growth for granted, and we must make sure that everyone shares in
Listen to this.
in order to sustain it. In a moment, the Secretary and I are going to sit down here and we're going to discuss some of the intentional actions that our administration is taking.
Listen up, family.
For families and to remove barriers to success within all communities.
Whoa, hold up. What did we miss? She's talking about giving support and resources to people within all communities, not all Black communities, not even all Hispanic communities, but within all communities. I'm going to just rewind it just a little bit. I want you to hear it. Stay with me here. We want to dissect these videos.
Since January. As a nation, we cannot take this growth for granted, and we must make sure that everyone shares in this growth in order to sustain it. In a moment, the Secretary and I are going to sit down here and we're going to discuss some of the intentional actions that our administration is taking to lower costs for families and to remove barriers to success within all communities.
That's a catch-22, family, where, again, the headlines, the titles always read how money and resources are going to be extended to the Black community. And when you read into it further or listen to it further, that money will be stripped and taken away and doubled down and divided, where the intended amount that should have went to us goes to another group each and every time, and groups that are already being supported financially by the federal government. Every group except for us. Well, but what is the purpose of this video? You ever be looking at a video, you say, what is the purpose of me looking at this video? Well, let me tell you the purpose. The purpose is for you guys to recognize how white supremacy, racism, and discrimination works in America. That's why these videos are very important, especially some of the other gentlemen that I've named, because they go in and they dissect these videos and break them down of exactly what they're saying, what they mean, and how they're going to move about it. And it's not very that hard when you just listen to the horse's mouth. No pun intended. That's very, very important. Because if you don't have anyone to really break this down to you, a lot of this will go over our heads. Because we got other things better to do, right? Now, listen to this. I just want you guys to listen out for red flags.
Today, I'm very proud to announce that almost $9 billion is now available to increase lending to small businesses in underserved communities.
Red flag. She just said underserved communities. She did not say black communities. Again, this is a trick bag. These are trick words that they use, and we automatically think it's us because we're the most marginalized group. So you automatically think when she speaks about underserved communities that she's referring to black people. No, underserved communities are white people. Okay, those trailer park trash. We're talking about Asians. We're talking about Hispanics. We're talking about Native Americans. We're talking about Afghans. Anyone in the underserved community who's not competing and comparing with the white social structure, economic structure in America. That is what she was referring to. That's what we need to watch out for. We can't just think of what they're saying automatically means black. No, it does not. Listen to this.
To communities that lack those services entirely. Communities like Itabena, a town of 1,800.
Okay, so Itabena is a town in Mississippi, and the town is only 1,500 people. 90% of those people are black, while I think around 8% are white. So the city, and she's referring to Mississippi, Mississippi is predominantly black, but it's only 1,500, and only 90% of that 1,500 are black. So you helping Itabena, how does that help black people in general? You certainly help a small group of black people somewhere that nobody never even heard of. But this is what they do, family, because they understand when they serve all of these other communities or within all communities, they know that we're going to get the least dollar amount. Okay. As they continue to increase their numbers of the buffer classes, like white Hispanics, Asians, and now Afghans, they understand they will not need the African American vote, the Black American vote. They understand that. Listen further.
With a median income of $17,000, communities filled with people with ambition, with aspirations.
Oh my God, give me a knife. Are you serious right now? With inspiration? This is ridiculous, family. This is ridiculous. And now, for the all trick words of them all, and we're going to go over some recorded videos of Kamala Harris as well as Joe Biden, which are astronomical, important, and devastating to this video because you understand she's sitting up here on the Freedmen's Bank Forum, the first black bank that was essentially the white power structure corrupted and squandered all of 60 to 70 million dollars from black people who were saving their money. So with that said, let's just listen a little bit closely.
With dreams for themselves and their children and their community. I have consulted with many community lenders who serve tribal communities in the plains of South Dakota, where Native women are making quilts that are important.
Did you catch it? Let me back up.
No $1,000.
Listen.
Communities filled with people with ambition, with aspirations, with dreams for themselves and their children and their community. I have consulted with many community lenders who serve tribal communities.
Tribal communities. What are tribal communities, family? Those are Native American communities. But listen more, because you know she's not talking about black people. First and foremost, she said tribal communities. And listen how she described these people, so you automatically know she's not talking about black people. Just listen.
In the plains of South Dakota, where Native women are making quilts that are important
Now we know that no black American women are in the plains of North Dakota and making quilts. So she's talking about Native Americans. Listen.
to their community, knowing there is a market for it based on the culture and traditions of those communities, and who
What community, Kamala? What communities? Not black communities. You're talking about Native communities. Okay.
needed a community lender. They needed a lender. But it just so happens that the community lenders
The federal government are Native Americans lenders. They don't need community lenders. They have you guys.
understand best the needs of these communities and see the potential then for growth.
Right.
Community lenders understand the value in providing.
Okay, we're not going to keep hearing her yap away, but you guys understand what I'm breaking down to you guys. Very one second. All right, here we go. Thanks for bearing with me. I'm having some technical issues here, a little internet, but you know how it is when you start to reveal the truth. You know how it is. Okay, so that's what first and foremost we need to understand. All right. So since I'm having technical issues, family, what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna take that off camera or whatever. But basically, the president, Secretary Yellen, was basically calling out and explaining all the devastation.
Honored to host you at
Here we go.
Treasury today. This is the Freedmen's Bank Forum, and I know most of us are familiar with the history. Founded by Lincoln in 1865 to help newly freed slaves build wealth, the bank's books were in shambles by 1874, largely because of poor oversight by a Congress that had waning interest in redistributing.
She even points out Congress in here. She said that the bank's books were devastated by poor oversight because of Congress.
Frederick Douglass, who had agreed to be the bank's president, tried to save it. He deposited $10,000 of his own money. But the show of confidence didn't work. The bank failed, and more than 61,000 African Americans lost their savings. Douglass's biographer, David Blight, called the affair one of the great aspirations, but also one of the great tragedies of Reconstruction.
But of course,
we're here today because, in many ways, we're still living with both that aspiration and that tragedy. The Vice President just described this very well. From Reconstruction to Jim Crow.
So before she continues, family, I want you to understand here that hundreds of black people died. They lost, not only did they lose their money, but a lot of them lost their lives because of the government and white supremacy. Okay, this is the Greenwood community in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I just want to build that premise and that base so you guys understand what's essentially going on right here. So as she was talking about how black people were done wrong by the federal government, now I wonder what she's going to say next.
To the present day, our economy has never worked fairly for Black Americans or really for any American of color.
she said that the government hasn't worked well for Black Americans. And then she said, and for other people of color. See, that's how they added that. They just slid that shit under the cover. You know how you just slide in? That's how they slid in. So you have to understand where she's getting at. She's already tacked on other people, people of color, other minorities, underserved communities. All these things are in a large group of a lexicon that you guys need to really understand and decipher. Listen, this is how we have to go about attacking white supremacy and the system of racism and discrimination in this country, is understand how they talk, and that they essentially are talking to one another because they know majority of Black people don't watch the news. Majority of Black people don't decipher what are these people actually saying. Just when we hear the word Black, we're jumping for joy, we're happy, but we're not hearing tribal communities, other people of color. So they get away with murder. They don't really get away with it. They kind of told us already and we just ignored it, right? Because whatever information they have that Black people are one big monolith, for some strange reason, the majority of us are. Because we keep blindly following political classes that do nothing for us, Republicans nor Democrats. Now, I know there's a lot of people that say, so are you saying politics is not needed? Because there's a lot of people that knows that there's a lot of things that got done politically with our ancestors fighting. I'm not saying that. Today's times are very, very different than what they were fighting for. And that's what we need to understand. We keep putting it on the backs of our ancestors. No. See, right now, we need to be more resistant than ever, because for the very first time in history, Black people, right now, we're the third minority. Pretty soon, we're going to be the fourth minority. And believe me, Dr. Claude Anderson pointed this out in a video a while ago. I think it was maybe 15, 20 years ago. He pointed this out. And at the time, we were the second minority. He's basically said, if we're not receiving any funding or resources or support from the government as a second minority, which holds a lot of political power, what do you think when we fall to the third and fourth class? Nothing, right? So how do we go about doing this? First and foremost, we need to understand how they essentially undermine us, how they benign and neglect us, but they still can get our vote each and every 2 to 4 years. The easiest thing you can do as an American citizen is vote. That's the easiest thing that you can freaking do, right? You just go in, boop, and that's it. So what if I told you that one strategy, not this is the final strategy, but one strategy would be that we just hold out and say, hey, let us know when you're going to give us reparations. Oh, do you want funding for houses? No, we want direct cash payments. Well, do you want small business loans? No, because every single time we get away from direct cash payments, everybody else get in on the fund. Everybody else get in on the action. Everybody else get in on the money being dispersed. And then they say, well, we're not going to give Black Americans a large sum of money because compared to other communities, other minorities, other people of color, Hispanics, compared in percentage, has more businesses than Black Americans. Asians, on percentage, has more businesses than Black Americans. So who get most of the money? That's why it's important to stay with direct cash payments to foundational Black Americans, to American Descendant of Slaves, those that we can find on the 1870 and 1890 census record. Very important. Before I break into my next segment, my wife picked me up this really good smelling cologne. You guys ever heard of this one right here? This is my Kevin Samuels plug. Just a joke. But this one's, I mean, I'm gonna break this cologne down for you guys. It has those smell. It smells good. I'm just kidding. It smells good. Let me move on. I don't want to get stuck. I had to do a brief intermission. So we know about the Freedmen's Bank. So let's go into the race riots of Tulsa, Oklahoma. We're not going to be here long, so it's not going to get boring, I promise you. But I'm going to read a little bit of this too. You said, imagine a community of great possibilities and prosperity built by Black people for Black people, places to work, places to live, places to learn and shop and play, places to worship. Now imagine it being ravaged by flames. And we understand in May 1921 in Tulsa, Oklahoma, neighborhood of Greenwood was a fully realized antidote to the racial oppression of the time. Built in the early part of the century and in northern pocket of the city, it was a thriving community of commerce and family life to its roughly 10,000 residents. Then it says brick and wood frame homes dotted the landscape along with blocks lined with grocery stores, hotels, nightclubs, billiard halls, theaters, doctor offices, and churches. We had a full thriving community. We didn't need to go anywhere outside of our community to get anything we needed. We had it all right there. Then it said Greenwood was so promising, so vibrant that it became home to what known as the Americans' Black Wall Street. But what took years to build was erased in less than 24 hours by racial violence, sending the dead into massive graves and forever altering family trees. Now, let me move down some so I can show you here that it's important to understand this piece of the video. Because, of course, like anything else, they basically say Black people had one of something where essentially we had a lot, many. And I'm going to go through these very, very quickly. I have a little bit more to read, but bear with me. I think I read okay. Not too good, but okay. Won't be here before you long, but listen up, please. I'm just going to skip down here a little bit. It says here, the Red Summer was a pattern of white on Black violence that occurred in 1919. This is 2 years before the Tulsa race riots. 2 years. Tulsa was 1921. The Red Summer was 1919. It said throughout the U.S., the post-World War I period was marked by a spike in racial violence, much of it directed towards African-American veterans returning from Europe, where they were often treated much better than by white Americans, despite the brave service to the country. The bloodiest incident occurred in Elaine, Arkansas, where it estimated that over 100 African Americans were killed. The race violence of Red Summer erupted in many other southern locations as well as the North. Okay, because some people believe that, oh, you don't have a southern experience. It happened in the North too, family. Understand that racism and discrimination and the Jim Crow was in every state. Okay, some more than others, but it operated in every state. And most notably in Chicago, the presence of racial hostility north was part reaction of northern whites to the large influx of African Americans to the northern cities during the Great Migration, though the hostility did not prevent large numbers of African Americans from heading north. Now, what's important about this? When they said many others, I'm going to break down to you other Black Wall Streets you may not have heard of, okay? And we're going to go through these very, very quickly. First and foremost, the Haiti community of Durham, North Carolina was a Black Wall Street. If you guys want to look at this story, actually on the root of all places, never mind, I won't go there, but this is where you can find this story. This was a Black Wall Street, and it tells all the Black businesses that operate within, okay? Let's move along. Insurance companies, lumber yards, everything. Jackson Ward, Richmond, Virginia. As we said right here, it was called the birthplace of Black capitalism because a lot of Black people were doing prominently well financially. I know you're not used to this. You're not used to essentially seeing a lot of Black people doing well. You always see onesies and twosies. But at one point in time, there was multiple Black Wall Streets around the U.S. Let me move on. It was also called the Harlem of the South, where the first Black woman to found a bank in the U.S. The 4th Avenue District of Birmingham, Alabama, also known as Little Harlem. And we understand why some places are called or renamed either Little Harlem or Harlem in certain places, because Harlem at the time was doing prominently well. We're talking about doctors, dentists, everything was Black in Harlem. Now we understand current day that Harlem is actually being gentrified. I digress, I move on. Also, Boulé, Oklahoma, no pun intended. But Boulé, Oklahoma was also another thriving Black economic powerhouse community. Okay. And then last but not least, we understand Tulsa. But that was in 1919 that essentially all of these businesses, family, got destroyed. In all of these cities, they were literally spiking in all of the major cities, even Atlanta. Okay, it was a large black population there as well. At the same time, in the same year, black wealth totally got erased in 1919. And then 1921, some of those same people from Boulay, Oklahoma, built that Greenwood community because they had the experience, they knew what to do. And then, of course, 1921, that community got destroyed because these operated at the same time. As that Tulsa happened a little later. So as we were talking about the videos, and before I add these videos to the live stream here, I pointed out how at the end of the Freedmen's Bank Forum with Kamala Harris that she stated that they're giving money to tribal communities as well. And so what I did was go out and picked up a video between Ed Gordon of the NAACP and Joe Biden, and they're talking about reparations. And I really want you, family, I really want you to listen to this video. Now, I didn't want to bore you guys and play the whole video, but this last portion here, bear with me. I want you to listen to this, please. Fair use, fair use. Listen closely.
Move on because we got to get some phone calls as well. But let me ask you this: if in fact a calculation comes to you that you are satisfied with, would you then say, "I'm for reparations"?
The answer is depend on what it was. It will include Native Americans as well.
Family, did you hear that? Again, any of you butter biscuit boot licking fools out there vote for this administration again, then you're the direct cause of Black empower being halted. You're the barrier, you're the wall, you're the ceiling, you're the people, you're the coons, the butt licking, butt breaking. You're the people who are essentially stopping Black excellence. You're stopping Black empowerment, and you are existing the system of white supremacy if you vote for administrations like this. This brother is asking him about reparations for American Descendant of Slaves, aka Foundation of Black Americans, and you go and you talking about you will entertain it as long as it includes Native Americans. Can we hear that one more time? Let me play this one more time.
Include Native Americans as well.
Hell no, hold on.
I'm for reparations. Comes to you that you are satisfied with, would you then say, "I'm for reparations"?
The answer is depend on what it was. It will include Native Americans as well.
Wow. Yep. You voted for him, not me. You voted for him. You know who you are, and you're kicking yourself in the ass because you not only disserved yourself, but you did the entire the Black population here in America, those foundational and American Descendant of Slaves. Single-handedly decimated. But wait, there's more. If hearing it from the horse's mouth is not good enough, let's see this then. Joe Biden wants reparations for Blacks to include Native Americans. It doesn't get no better than this. But I have some people who like, we're going to do these things political. We're going to go out there and march. We're going to fund lobbyists to fight for Black issues. That sounds good, but the power's in your vote. I mean, okay. the reason why it's important to understand the powers in your vote, family, is why is everybody always trying to get it? Ladies and gentlemen, in college, in school, in life, you seen that real fine looking female, or you see that very handsome, man, and everybody's trying to get them. It's the same thing as your vote. The only difference is your vote holds power. Your vote is influential. And we don't need everybody because we're not going to have anybody, because unfortunately, there's a lot of Democratic shields that look like you and I. There's a lot of puppets for white supremacy that look like you and I. There's a lot of buck-breaking people in our community that they will show up with any size to speak to their issues, not knowing that they're not including them. Yeah, you know who I'm talking about. Every way we turn, they keep telling us what they're going to do and what they're not going to do for us. But for some strange reason, we can't understand what's going on in this world where everything is public. Everything is public. Robert Byrd. Who was Robert Byrd? Byrd started his political life as an exalted cyclops in the Ku Klux Klan. In 1944, Byrd wrote the following in a letter to the Senator Theodore Bilbo: "I shall never fight in the armed forces with a Negro by my side. Rather, I should die 1,000 times and see old glory trampled in the dirt, never to rise again, than to see his beloved land of ours become degraded by race mongrels, a throwback to the blackest specimen from the wilds." Look like good friends to me. But maybe we can't judge people based on their friends. That's correct, LaMarcus. New York had a Black Wall Street. Now it's Central Park. Now it's Central Park. Indeed, it was. That is the very definition of redlining. Terrorizing, destruction, chaos within our community. That's always occurred by who? The government. So, I mean, we have these little racial skirmishes. We have these Karen encounters. We have these Chads that run up on us, especially when they're in a group, to attack us every now and again. But the mass incarceration of Black people, the genocide of Black people, the race killing of Black people mostly comes from federal and state governments. So some people may ask, because a lot of times I get this out of the videos anytime I mention Native Americans. We talk about Native Americans don't look Black and some Black Americans. I'm not going to get into that. What I'm going to get into the funding of Native Americans, the so-called white color, red color, Mongolian, East Asian, migrated looking sort of people. Just for the sake of argument, okay? Because I know Dane Calloway has a large following of American Indians look like you and I. And to a certain extent, I believe a lot what he says. But I won't even get to that part. Won't get into the genealogy part of it. But in case you guys did not know, Native Americans receive $20 billion a year from the federal government. And this is from their news. They receive about $20 billion each and every year. $20 billion from the federal government. And what we also need to understand, family, is that this year they have already received $31 billion. Senate passes largest investment in Native American programs in history with more than 31 billion headed to Native communities. And of course, they broke them down of all the ways they're going to fund money to Native American communities. I'm not hating. Whether it be healthcare, housing programs, colleges, education, the family, subsidies, economic infrastructure investments, communities, neighborhoods, you name it. 31 billion on top of the 20 billion or increase, because they'll continue to get that money as well. Don't worry, family, I have some more though. And it states here, President Biden's fiscal year 2022 budget marks significant investments in Indian affairs programs. This is a federal government site, by the way. They call it the BIA, which is the Bureau of Indian Affairs. It says the request of 2.7 billion, okay, 610 million over the fiscal year 2020 enacted level. And it continue to break down how this money is going to be broken up to the 574 federal recognized American Indian tribes and Alaska Native tribes. And they basically base down how they're going to budget the money, right? Empower tribal communities. Have anybody that you know of in a Black community ever heard that the federal government was going to empower their communities where a direct payments are going to the Bureau of Indian Affairs and then they're going to disperse that money throughout the 574 tribes? You guys ever hear that in a Black community? I mean, PA, New York, DC, Florida, Texas, Georgia, California. I mean, have you, Louisiana, you guys ever heard that? No, you haven't. But I'll continue. It says here how tribes plan to conduct, consolidate, and administer program services functions, blah, 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 including in $85 billion, given 275 tribes the flexibility to combine and manage similar compatible contracted programs and grants. So I wonder why they continue to get funding, resources, and reparations, while we as a group never get support, resources, monetary, compensatory payments to us. Now, we understand that the conditions that we're mostly in wasn't started by us. It was started by the system of white supremacy globally. And they continue to operate on a code to oppress us, undermine us, and neglect us. See, neglect is a very, very funny thing, because neglect is, if I continue to do things for a certain person and they're taking your kindness as a weakness, or they're neglecting your worth. You see what I'm saying? You ever did something for someone or for some people and they neglected you? They never gave you any reward, award, accolades of any sort. And this is where the term benign neglect comes from mostly the Democratic Party. Because again, I told you I have a little bit of respect for Republicans, just a little bit, not much, because they just totally ignore us. They're like, yeah, we're not doing enough for Black Americans. Oh, okay, cool. Least we know. See, the Democratic Party is telling you that you're going to Six Flags. That's what they do. They tell you going to Six Flags. They got Escalade limousines outside. They got Porsche limousines. They got all types of limousines you never seen. And they take 40 million Foundation Black Americans to Six Flags. They say, hey, we're going to get you the Flash Pass. You're going to get in front of the line. You're going to be the first ones. You guys know the Flash Pass, right? They have them at a lot of amusement parks, I think even Disneyland, where you pay an additional cost, right? And you get in front of the line. But this is what they told us. They said, we're going to do all that. Got you the Flash Pass. We got a line ahead. We're going to do first class delivery. They bring you all the way to the gates of Six Flags. And they leave. You're like, well, how are we going to get in? They said, we'll let you know in 4 years. We'll let you know in 4 years. And 4 years come around, they do the same thing all over again. Because they understand that the only thing we need to do is talk to Black people, mention their name a couple of times, speak about white supremacy a couple of times, and then they're going to think that we're for them. You see it now. I know you see it. Sometimes it just takes somebody to show you the ropes. That's all. I have something else for you, family. Just in case you guys forgot, right? Give me 1 second. Now, first and foremost, I love to play these clips because they're important. One of my favorite clips that I
reparations for Black people.
Need to listen to.
Well, listen. Again, we had over 200 years of slavery. We had Jim Crow for almost a century. We had
Family,
legalized
give me a
discrimination.
second, family. Can I let me back this up a little bit, because it's important that you hear the question again. And then what I continue to see in the Democratic Party, like for the past 20 years, is when someone asks them a direct question, they never give a direct answer. It's like when Ed Gordon asked Joe Biden about reparations. He said all this, and at the end he said, you got to include Native Americans. Now, I want you to hear this video in its entirety, because do you support reparations? When somebody supports something, I know as a man, we like straight answer, yes or no. But see, I'm glad she answered this question like this, because she beat around the bush, and at the end, she said no. And they've been living up to their word. So there's no excuse.
Do you support reparations for Black people?
Well, listen. Again, we had over 200 years of slavery. We had Jim Crow for almost a century. We had legalized discrimination, segregation, and now we have segregation and discrimination that is not legal but still exists and is a barrier to progress. We have disparities around housing. We have disparities around education. We have disparities around income. And we have to recognize that
explain our
everybody
condition,
did
Kamala.
not
We
start
already
out
know
on an equal footing in this country. And in particular, Black people have not. And so we have got to recognize that and do something about that and give folks a lift up. That's why, for example, I'm proposing the LIFT Act. Give people who are making $100,000 or less
give people, not Black people,
a tax credit, which will benefit and uplift 60% of Black families who are in poverty.
So by default, it affects Black families, but there's not a particular policy for African Americans that you would explore.
But no, if you look at the reality of who will benefit from certain policies, when you take into account that they're not starting at the same place and they're not starting on equal footing, it will directly benefit Black children, Black families, Black homeowners, because the disparities are so significant. So if we focus on the specific issues that have resulted in the greatest disparities, and we understand that that's part of why we're doing it. Listen, the reality also is this.
Here we go.
Any policy that will benefit Black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No, because what?
That's my favorite part, family. When she say we're not going to do, not just one thing for Black people. Anything they do for Black people will benefit the rest of America, because you guys don't give money to any other group either. You guys don't do that. No, Kamala. You guys don't give money to other groups. You don't give executive orders of protection to other people. You don't give other groups, minorities, billions of dollars so they can live their life better. You don't do that, do you? No, there's no way. There's no way Kamala Harris does that. There's no way Joe Biden. There's no way the federal government does that. We understand that, right, family? Because you've been around these people, listening to these people since they've been in office, even prior to office. So I know a lot of things that you're seeing here, you already saw 100 times, right? Because this is how they operate. They're very blatant about their disrespect and racism towards Black Americans. There's no doubt. I mean, would it be the vice president when they asked her about reparation? She said no. She said we're going to give any Black person we're going to help everybody, even though we know about the disparities, even though we know about the racism, even though we know about the Black Wall Streets that were decimated and destroyed, even though we just did a Freedmen's Forum. That's your VP. And believe me, she's just in line with her white paymaster.
Biden, do you support reparations?
Look, let me.
Vice President Biden, do you support reparations?
Look, let me.
Vice President Biden, do you support reparations?
Look, let me. Since I haven't spoken on this, got a chance. Number one, the reason we're the country we are is because of immigration. We've been able to cherry pick the best from every single.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it right here, family, because I want you to understand what was the question. The question was, do you support reparations? And then he automatically starts talking about immigrants. Listen, I'm gonna let it play.
Vice President Biden, do you support reparations?
Look, let me. Since I haven't spoken on this, got a chance. Number one, the reason we're the country we are is because of immigration. We've been able to cherry pick the best from every single continent. The people who come here have determination, resilience. They are ready to stand up and work like the devil. We have 24 out of every 100 children in our school today is Hispanic. The idea that we are going to walk away and not provide every opportunity for them is not only stupid and immoral, but it's bad for America. They are the future of America, and we should invest in them. Everybody will benefit from it, every single American.
So every single American will benefit from bringing over hundreds of thousands of immigrants. And you should get used to it. So when asked about reparations, Joe Biden went directly to immigrants. You know what's funny about this, family, is that we already knew this, but we had other people in our family, in our community, on TV, athletes, entertainers, actors, actresses, to influence us. Somehow not to listen to what we heard and forego what we seen and read, and we still went out and voted for a political class that doesn't give a fuck about Black people. We have to continue to reveal how not only undermine us, but attack us through economic and social structures. See, by raising everyone else up, we automatically become the underclass. We automatically become the criminal class. I know you guys have been hearing about the racial hate that supposedly Black Americans have for the Asian community, which is a false narrative that was created by federal and state governments, that Black people are just going around attacking Asians. I mean, why us? Why us? Like, why are we just because of COVID-19? And now, if you call an Asian American or Asian person in America any sort of racial slur, or you get to any confrontation, they can consider that a hate crime. But you can get called the N-word, you can get jumped, and racial epithets and slurs are being yelled at you, and they totally throw it out of court, that is any sort of race crime. That is any sort of race crime. Because as Black Americans, we don't have protections under the federal law. We didn't get any justice bills legislation. We didn't get any protections from the federal government, let alone your state and local governments. We have to go about this very strategically, because if we can't comprehend what I'm trying to essentially Barney style this, then we're in more trouble than ever. Wendell says it feels like a coordinated effort agreed upon behind closed doors. The planet needs an underclass, and Black people still have the economic short straw. So why not us? Evil. I cannot agree more. The question is this. This is only the first year of their presidency. And if I can recall, I don't recall any president neglecting us as much as this presidency. I mean, they all have their equal hatred of us, but I won't go there. But you understand what I'm saying, right, family? You understand that when time comes again, they're going to be pushing for Kamala Harris and Michelle Obama to be president and vice president. And I know how strongly we love to see our people in high places. But not if they're a walking shell of themselves, not if they're puppets, not if they're just tools of the system. Then it doesn't matter what color they are, they're not going to do anything for us. We happy, we singing, we dancing, we holding buffets and fish fries. I mean, all of that is symbolism. All of those things means absolutely nothing. You ever seen some powerful people? They didn't have to say a damn thing. They were just quiet, and you could just see the spiritual prowess, the illuminating power around them just by looking. And that's the only thing we have to do. When they speak to us, unless they saw to speak our language of direct cash payments of reparations to us, that's how we should be. We shouldn't even talk back. They already know what we want. They already know what's owed to us. They already know. So we don't have to continue to play a game that we already know we're going to lose. Why continue to play a game that we continue to lose? And I understand there's a lot of reparationists out there, a lot of reparational groups around the country, and they're trying to put pressure on the political powers to give direct cash payments to Black Americans. I understand that. But there's another fight to be done as well. Now, as we are the third minority behind Hispanics, it's time. It's time to say no, or we're going to give grants and access to capital for small business administration. We're going to give opportunities. An opportunity, that's not money, family. An opportunity is a chance. We're going to give opportunities for Black Americans to buy a home so they can build generational wealth. That's word salad. That's just a bunch of poppycock. That's nothing. Those words are empty. And you have to understand how they talk, because if they're just saying some words you're not familiar with and you think they're going to give us something, absolutely not. And unfortunately, since we are economically distraught, the only power we have is our vote. And we'll have people like Jim Crow Clyburn tell us holding your vote is stupid. Using your power is stupid. Using your power is stupid because the vote is the only thing we have as the collective. We don't have anything else. We don't have enough money to buy off senators and congressmen and lobbyists. We don't have that money as a group. As a group, we're barely surviving. We're America's underclass. We are America's criminal class, as they labeled us. Not that we are. But he would tell you not to use your political power, which is your vote. Just go out and vote whoever we tell you to vote for. That's what they tell us. Why go into a gunfight with a pencil? See, your vote is your gun, and it's the biggest gun that we have. And we can knock white supremacy. We can knock black empowerment on its ass. We can get black empowerment, and we can close the gap of white supremacy. See, the closer we get to the economic level that they're at, not saying that it will be totally destroyed, but how the system is ran slowly changes. We have to continue to fight white supremacy. Let me read some of your notes before I get out of here, family. Lamarcus says, it is intentional for us to bring us into slavery. Give me my money that's owed to my ancestors. Family, you have a great and wonderful night. I know a lot of you guys joined late. Please run a video. There's a lot of things that we cover here tonight. I didn't want to keep you too long. I know everybody's watching football. But nonetheless, family, please share and subscribe to this channel. You know, throughout the week, I do financial videos of investing and savings and getting out of debt, raising your credit score. And every now and again, I do some political commentary so we can understand how these things are being revealed to us. And there's other channels they're dedicated to the fight. They're dedicated to the struggle. They're dedicated to the mission. Family, we all need to operate on a code. And here I promote the same people on my channel, that you guys can go out and get intellectual commentary and oration, that brothers who are more intelligent than I that can break this down even more so. And the people I'm referring to channels are TD Hip Hop Media, Philip Scott, also known as Phil Scott, Tariq Nasheed, also on Tariq Radio, and as well as Jason Black, aka the Black Authority. And I'll tell you this, as I listen to all of their commentary, they pretty much agree on everything. And there's some differences in their content, but there's one thing that they all share. They are on code when it comes to white supremacy. That's what you guys should be doing. We should be on code about this thing. We can't onesies and twosies this. We can't do that, family. We have to be very, very unified. This is the one time I would definitely say that as a group, we need to be acting and operating as a monolith. I used to point out who would be our leader. And my mindset has changed drastically. There's not an agenda, there's a code. There's not a leader, there's a code. And within that code, there's an agenda. But as a leader, have you realized that majority of our leaders has been assassinated? They have been corrupt. They have been manipulated. They've been tricked. They've been jailed. All sorts of things have happened when we put our belief and support behind one or two people. And we have to recognize that when we work as a unit, we're more powerful, we're stronger, we're more influential to changing things the way we want them to be. They're using military strategy against us. They divide us and then they conquer. See, you can use that military strategy of divide and conquer two ways. You can divide your forces and conquer your enemy, or you can divide your enemy and conquer them. So unfortunately, they have drastically divided us where all of us believe all these different things. I was just talking to my son just the other day. He's a Kappa. And of course, there's a lot of Greek fraternities and Greek sororities. You got your Rhos, you got your Deltas, your AKAs, right? Sigmas, Qs, Alphas. You got all these Black fraternities. And I told him that in some cases, this is a form of separation from our people. Because a lot of times you get in those groups and they become cults. So essentially, as a group, they will vote a particular way. And unfortunately, if not all, majority of our Black fraternity and sororities vote Democrat. Because this is how they indoctrinate our people. It's weird to me that as Black people, as innovators, as the first people walking on earth, that we will take a white structure, a white system, and then try to make it Black instead of just starting our own. Because we've known to start our own. There was a part of history where our ancestors thought the only way of our survival was to integrate and assimilate into white culture. They soon found out, with all the destruction, mayhem, and murder, that this is wrong. We should actually separate because we can't operate together. So the system of white supremacy breaks down, divide us, and make us war against each other. Whether it be economically, like rich Blacks, middle-class Blacks, and poor Blacks have them all fighting against each other, right? Socially, right? Black LGBT against Black straight. They attack us in all human activities, as Nelly Fuller said. They attack us. So if you're not understanding that you getting pulled over by a white police officer and you fear for your life because of the terror and the trauma that we've seen and heard and been a part of in some sort of matter, that's a really small example of white supremacy. See, a brother earlier named how Central Park used to be another Black Wall Street. Central Park is now a park. At one point in time, there was businesses there. There was a community there. And that group of Black Americans were prominent. They were successful. Just like any other neighborhood, if they didn't destroy it, they redlined it. If they didn't redline it, they made sure they put highways and roads through our communities to bring more traffic, more congestion, more criminal activity to those environments. To do what? This is easy. To lower the property value. Nobody wants to live there. Raise up the rent when the contract of your renting ends, and then push you out. And now we have gentrification. Gentrification is not a new term. They just recoined it. Redlining is gentrification. And it's simple. You take an area that's desirable, you raise the rent tenfold. You know the people of that community, Black Americans, can't afford it because you know the national average income of a Black American, around $35,000. So your rent goes from $700 to $1,500. And what they do is they make sure they can separate us and put us in an area where they've lowered the rent or kept the rent the same so they know exactly where we are. Gentrification is redlining. That's all it is. So family, I hope you understand what's being revealed, what's have been occurring for hundreds of years. And I'm glad that a lot of us are waking up. People are now hating the term woke. Yeah, we all need to be woke. We all need to be on code. We all need to understand the agenda on the code. Okay? Nothing will save us. And we understand that voting won't save us. As I showed you here tonight, family, that the only thing you need to do is listen. The only thing you need to do is read. And the truth will be revealed.